The Honourable Phil Goff.
I want to first say that the Labor Party is in favour of this bill, and it is supporting each of the clauses of the bill. Basically what the bill does, of course, is it enables us to extend electronic monitoring to categories of people that weren't included in the original legislation that I passed back in 2002. So if we look at Part 1A of the bill, we see, and this was a change made in the Select Committee itself, we see that we're extending the potential for the Chief Executive Officer of the Department of Corrections to require electronic monitoring of people who are temporarily released from custody. That's under amendment to Section 63. Those that are temporarily removed from the prison under Section 64 and the amendments there. And the purpose of it is quite clearly that we want to deter people who are out in the community on parole or under intensive supervision, or that may be out because they're released to go to a funeral or some other purpose for which they can legitimately be released. We want to deter offenders from breaching the conditions of their release and going about things that they shouldn't be doing and offending in a way that they should not be. It also enables us to monitor the compliance. Now, the Labor Party will support anything that means that any offender who may be at risk of offending and creating new victims in the community, to deter them from doing that and to bring them to justice if they do it. But I've got some questions I'd like to ask to the Minister, because it's all very well for us to legislate in the House today to say that we are putting a condition on offenders that they have to wear an electronic bracelet, if in fact these electronic bracelets can and are being readily removed. Now, Kelvin Davis and I were in the Estimates Committee earlier this year when the Minister came in with a great deal of fanfare and said, here is the old electronic bracelet and here is the new one. Now, I can cut through the old one, that's easy, but I'd have to take a chainsaw to cut the old one off. They'd lose their leg rather than losing the monitor. And this isn't making it up, this sounds like a fairy tale, but this is actually what the Minister came to the Select Committee and said. These things were practically impossible to remove. Well, I was watching television that night, and Billy Weepoo got a pair of scissors and he cut through it. This is an ordinary pair of scissors and cut through the electronic bracelet. As easy as that. Now, I've got a workshop at home, Mr. Speaker, that's full of tools that would cut through it. You know, pliers and side cutters and hacksaws or whatever. But to take a pair of scissors to a new bracelet that the country is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in getting, and they could remove it that easily, when the Minister gave her commitment to all of us in that Select Committee, and Todd Barclay was there, he saw it, he was there saying, what a great Minister we've got, look, she's coming with this irremovable bracelet. It was no such thing. The Minister was making it up, Mr. Chairman. And so we are engaged tonight in the committee stages of this bill in very serious legislation that will extend the conditions under which we can require people to wear bracelets that they can readily cut off. Now, I want to ask the Minister if she can give us the assurance that we're not wasting our time in the House tonight. And I want to ask the Minister this as well. I saw a comment from John Key, and it was last year, and he said it would be ludicrous was the word, it would be ludicrous if a person that is under electronic monitoring could readily remove the bracelet. Well, it is ludicrous, Mr. Chairman. And my question to the Minister is, if it is ludicrous as her Prime Minister describes it, why are we passing legislation to extend the use of electronic monitoring when it can so readily be removed? And you might say, Mr. Chairman, well, this happens only on very odd occasions. Well, the world is a very odd place, because in the last 6 years it's happened on 15 and a half 15,500 occasions when people, Mr Chairman, Mr Chairman, 15,500 occasions when people have been in breach of electronic monitoring. And we then heard from the Department of Corrections, Mr Chairman, and I think you might have heard yourself because you're on the committee, you heard them say that there are 27 to 40 people out in the community at any one time that should be electronically monitored, but they've removed their bracelet and they haven't been apprehended. Now, I want law that protects New Zealanders. I think that's what we all want in this House. That's why we're supporting this legislation. But what we haven't had, and I hope the Minister will take the call, is an assurance that when we pass this law, it's going to have some meaning. That we're not going to have a law that we pass because we do that in this House. We pass law every day, but it won't mean anything because the person that we've just extended electronic monitoring to will take out their fingernail cutters and snip the bracelet off. Now, you know, when we were at the centre that was responsible for monitoring, I asked the question to one of the people there. I said, "Why don't you make these practically impossible to take off?" "Oh," he said, "what if it gets caught in a piece of machinery?" That's what the answer was. Well, Mr Chairman, frankly, that's a nonsense. You know, we should have a form of electronic monitoring that is extraordinarily difficult to remove. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace the existing bracelet with a bracelet that's just as useless, and then we expect the public to take us seriously when we say we're going to get really tough on these offenders, we're going to monitor them, and the community will be safe because we know where they are and what they're doing. Well, that cannot come about, sir, unless we have a system of bracelets that actually work, unless we have a system that actually has some sort of sanction for the 15,500 people who have decided that they will breach the condition of their parole or of their intensive supervision or their home detention or whatever. Mr Speaker, the current situation is not good enough. And one of the worries of the people that submitted to us on this bill was that the fact that they're wearing a bracelet doesn't mean to say they will not reoffend. And we saw that dramatically and tragically in the case of Tony Robertson, who was wearing a GMS monitor at the time he ran down, raped and murdered Blessy Coutinko. And when people see something like that, they also worry that maybe this parliament is complacent, we'll put them on an electronic monitor and everything will be fine. Well, clearly in that case, it wasn't fine. And that family lives with the tragic consequences of the failure of our system every day of their lives. So they are serious questions to the Minister. I approve of the groups that we're extending electronic monitoring to, but I remain totally unconvinced that we have a system that is actually working when you can use a pair of scissors to cut off your electronic bracelet. And where, if you're only relying on the electronic bracelet, as we apparently were with Tony Robertson, the person can still go out and commit a grievous crime. So what we are doing in theory looks very good, Mr Chairman. How this translates to practice is the question that we should be asking as we work through the Committee of the Whole. So what will the Minister say in explanation of the assurance that the Minister of Corrections gave to us as parliamentarians that these things were practically irremovable when that was clearly, absolutely inaccurate? Judith Collins, she did, not Crusher Collins, but Snipper Collins. We actually spent 10 minutes of our valuable estimates time going through this role-playing where the Minister said, this is how tough it is, and it passed around the committee. It wasn't tough at all. We were misled. And I don't want to mislead the country tonight by saying we will pass this legislation and therefore we will be safer from the activities of these offenders. Why can't we, in the 21st century, have a form of technology that means that these things can't be readily removed? That's a valid question, Mr Chairman. Legislate, yes, but if it means nothing, it's not taking us anywhere. I invite the Minister now to take a call and give us an explanation as to why we were misled that these were irremovable and what she's now doing about that problem.
I call Todd Barclay.
Chair, it's